The smell of burnt coffee and sizzling grease hung in the air, a relic of better days. The bell above the door. The wind howled as Brad pulled into Torres Diner, a forgotten joint on Route 66. The neon open sign flickered, barely clinging to life, much like the rusting gas pump outside. Inside, jingled as he stepped in, drawing slow, measuring stares. A group of bikers, clad in leather and arrogance, fell silent. Their laughter died, replaced by something colder, something more predatory. Brad ignored them. He chose a booth by the window, an old habit. Never sit with your back to the door. The waitress, a young woman with wary eyes, hesitated before approaching. Her pen tapped against the notepad, nervous. "What'll it be?" she asked, her glance flicking toward the bikers. "Cheeseburger, fries, black coffee," Brad replied evenly. His voice was steady, unshaken. Behind him, a chair scraped across the floor. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with a tangled beard, leaned back in his seat, making sure everyone could hear him. "Well, would you look at that? A tourist." The others chuckled, low and rough. Brad ignored him, sipping his coffee. "Hey buddy, you deaf or just rude?" The waitress set down his coffee, her hand trembling slightly. Brad gave her a small, reassuring nod. "Thank you." Software polite. She hurried away. She knew what was coming. The air thickened. The silence became something brittle, something waiting to snap. Beardman stood, boots thudding against the floor as he swaggered toward Brad's booth. The other bikers grinned, eager for a show. Behind the counter, the waitress froze, her fingers twitching toward the phone. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Brad set his coffee down gently. "Something I can help you with?" His tone was calm, too calm. The unexpected response made Beardman hesitate, but only for a second. "You're sitting where you don't belong." One of the bikers snickered. "Show him, Jimmy. Teach him some manners." Jimmy. That was his name. Not that it mattered. Brad sighed. "I'm just here for lunch." Jimmy slammed a fist on the table, rattling the salt shaker. "I don't think you heard me, friend." Brad looked up. Finally, their eyes met, and Jimmy hesitated, because there was nothing there. No fear, no anger, just stillness. Brad's voice dropped to a quiet warning. "Back off," Jimmy snorted, masking his unease. "Or what?" The diner went silent. Even the cook had stopped flipping burgers. Jimmy reached for Brad's collar. Wrong move. Brad's hand shot out, catching Jimmy's wrist in an iron grip. The biker's breath hitched. That grip wasn't normal. "Don't." One word, software-controlled, a warning. Jimmy yanked back, stumbling. "Think you're tough, huh?" He turned to his crew. "Get up, boys." Chairs scraped. 5 bikers stood, cracking knuckles, smirking. Brad sighed, took one last sip of coffee, and set the cup down with a soft clink. He stood. The bikers loomed over him. They thought they had him outnumbered. They were wrong. What happened next? It was over in less than a minute. Jimmy swung first. Brad caught his wrist midair, twisted it, and sent him face first into the table. 1 down. A wiry man charged. Brad sidestepped, drove an elbow into his ribs, sent him sprawling. 2 down. The biggest biker lunged. Brad trapped his arm, swept his legs, pinned him to the floor. 3 down. Another grabbed a chair. Brad ducked, countered, sent him crashing into a booth. 4 down. The last biker froze. His hands shook. Then, without a word, he bolted for the door. 5 down. Aftermath. The diner sat in stunned silence. The waitress whispered, "Who are you?" Brad adjusted his baseball cap, calm as ever. "Just a guy getting lunch." He dropped some bills on the table, nodded at the waitress, and walked out. The bell jingled faintly behind him. Outside, the biker who fled stood by his motorcycle, eyes wide. He didn't say a word, just stepped aside. Brad climbed into his truck, started the engine, and pulled onto the road. He didn't care about the whispers, the stares, the stories they'd tell. For Brad, it was simple.